WPC power driver board came from a full set of WPC boards from a Star Trek The Next Generation. So initial assessment of this board is I can see something that I consistently rail against on my channel here is somebody has wholesale replaced all these caps, C11, C5, C6, C7, and this is C30 over here. And some of the bridge rectifiers have been replaced also. Now, the problem with this is most people don't have the ability to do this right. And you can see that these through holes are really not supporting these caps very well. And this bridge, somebody has replaced, and you can see that that is, if it's still hanging on, it's hanging on by a thread. So that's got to come off. But never fear, we have some jumpers and probably some plumber's solder on the back of this. So please excuse my Wednesday morning railing on well-meaning but inexperienced probable homeowner pinball folks. Holy smoke. Look at all this. So I've removed all this as gently as I could, but the reality is it's something like this. This trace is going to need to get replaced. Fortunately, it's a short run there. And even down here on C6 and C7, probably going to do some rivet installation down here. The only cap that it looks like they managed to get out safely or without damaging anything is C30. So a little time spent with the some rivets and a rivet anvil. Repaired through holes at capacitors C6 and C7. And a close-up of one of the rivets installed. And away we go. This is a Star Trek The Next Generation complete board set. I don't get those in very often. And I'm sorry about the glare. You can see I'm wearing my Peaches Record shirt today. But this board set comprised of the Fliptronics 2 board, the DCS sound board, the DMD controller, the power driver board, the 8 AUX driver board, which I just updated my bench to support, and a CPU board. So on the Fliptronics board, there's nothing wrong with it. It had tested 100% for me. I just replaced that filter cap in the center of the image. On the DCS soundboard, I replaced the 5 blue 1 microfarad caps and these 2 big power filter caps. A couple of these 1 microfarad caps, these 2 here, are in the serial path of the audio output, so they can fail and one or both channels of the audio will then be missing. There's a service bulletin to clip this capacitor at C37 and the analog one there at C45 also, so I have done that. The DMT controller needed a partial high voltage rebuild. The first thing to go on these is always these 47K resistors. I replaced that filter cap and a couple other components on here. It's good to go. Washed it down. That was one dirty board. Power driver board. Oh, this was the one. And I rolled in some pictures, or I will roll in some pictures, where wholesale changing out of the 15,000 microfarad caps was done. So I have removed every single one of those and patched the through holes as necessary. I also had to replace BR1 and BR2 because the through holes were damaged and the bridge rectifiers that were in there were just unusable, as was BR4, I believe that is. I replaced that one on the right. Somebody had replaced all the headers all the way around except for the 12-volt unregulated header, so I replaced that one. They did a reasonable job of that, so I just left all that. There is one jumper on the back from this top pin up to the bottom leg of that triac. Somebody also replaced that triac. These triacs, they're BT138Es. They never fail. If you have a problem with general illumination, it is not going to be the triac. On the MPU board, I've replaced the power input header and C31. The client had already added NVRAM, and I took the battery holder off, I think. I put a lower voltage reset generator in. On boot, we get this message, which is not surprising because we're not in an actual Star Trek The Next Generation. We can test everything. That's normal for not being in a game. Switches. That's all the diagonals. You can test the flipper cabinet switches and the flippers at the same time. Cabinet door switches. And so those are all working correctly. Switch matrix as well as the Fliptronics board mini switch matrix is working properly. Solenoids, we'll get this test running. Using an actual game ROM is not quite as nice for testing a board set because the individual game instantiation of how the solenoids are used, that's a gun motor, it's on for a longer period of time, is a little bit different. Now this is where you saw a few of these over here. Those were turning on as those were the solenoids for the diverters underneath the playfield. Sorry, it was taking me a little while to come up with that. But those are all working properly, and that is a result of me adding this AUX 8 driver board to my test rig. And this is a Rotten Dog version of that board. So let's do the flasher test. Whoops, let's do GI first since I'm there. Nice. We'll do lamps and flashers at the same time. So they got these lower two, and all these are flash lamps. And then the lamp matrix is operating correctly. This is the column 9 that gets added for Star Trek The Next Generation and a couple other games. Let's see, it's got it on here. It would be Star Trek The Next Generation. There it is. Switch 4 in. So Star Trek, Next Gen, and Indiana Jones. I can also check to see if this column 9 is pulsing, which it is, which is why this LED is dimly lit. Again, these are super well-designed boards that I got from Mr. Victor up in the Pacific Northwest, Pinsider Dumbass. And I remember the first post that I responded to Dumbass on, and he very lucidly described a solution to something, and I said something like, well, you're not a dumbass at all. Let's hear the Star Trek The Next Generation cadre of sounds.
Welcome to the Enterprise. We can destroy the asteroids in our path, sir.
I believe they have evil intentions. Shoot again.
The Forge here. Someday you'll learn to play pinball. Q, we don't have time for your games. You are an honorable player. Resistance is futile.
Hurry up. Activate it.
Fire photon torpedoes.
I think I missed one of those, so I'm going to go back and listen to it.
Honorable player.
Hurry up. Activate it.
Fire photon torpedoes.
There's just a long gap there after hurry up activated. So this board set is now 100% working. In addition to replacing these 5 15,000 microfarad caps, I replaced C2 and C4, which frequently leaks. I added a 1N5401 to the bottom of the big sand resistor to prevent C11 from being damaged, as it might be connected incorrectly. And we are good to go. Thank you so much for sending this. And warp factor 4, I guess it is.